So I am attempting to speak to other millennials that feel the same way as me, because we all got fed the same dream, right? Go to college, get that degree, use it, because we didn't get the chance to, and it's our first generation of full children that get the chance to go to college and like can pursue these things. And then, you know, the economic bubble in 2008 happens, the federal government sequestration in 2013 happens, and then
How old are you?
at 34.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh wow,
Yeah, well, it just
you experienced all. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So I was the 9/11 generation, so I was old enough to remember when it happened and where I was and how it made me feel and the impact it had on my parents. My father's marketing company did the recruitment marketing for, and still does, for the Army National Guard, and they have for the last 20 years. And the impact that it had on him when all these different things were starting to happen was, you know, interesting and heartbreaking how the military industrial complex can pursue and ebb and flow and impact so many people's lives in ways that you, even if you're not a soldier. And so it was just interesting to watch all of that evolve and grow up under that and watch that, which I think obviously impacted why I wanted to join the federal government, because that's what I believed was ideal. You know, you're supposed to be upholding the Constitution of the United States, and the integrity of that was so meaningful to me because I watched him do it in his own way. Anyway.
Oh, great.
It's not great. This show is not supposed to be about me today. It's supposed to be all about you.
Do you edit this at all, or like?
Yeah, I will.
Okay,
I'll edit some. But I think some of this is useful though. No, it's okay. No, it's the listeners get the I'll edit a lot of me mostly because I can't talk correctly, which you would think I would get better at this doing multiple shows a week. But they know that it's a better opportunity to hear me interact with someone else, just because it's really great to see me like talk about other things that are not just, I'm really sad today. So this is good. You laughing is helpful.
Okay.
This is not a comedy podcast, right? Like it's a heavy podcast most of the time. Just it's the very beginning of the episodes. Like I was in a dark place, and so I've changed and grown a lot because of this. But
fantastic, people get to see you on that journey. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see if we can't be useful, and yeah.
All right. So everybody, welcome to the Lost and Found podcast. This is your host, Amanda, and I am so excited. We have a wonderful guest here today named Mike Tecku. He is a serial entrepreneur, artist, and seeker whose journey reads like a modern-day American epic, from a struggling songwriter who sold his guitar for $900 to a multimillionaire who has stepped away from traditional success. Michael's story is one of sacrifice, reinvention, and relentless pursuit of meaning. After facing many moments that have tested him, from walking on fire to watching his partner battle multiple sclerosis, Mike created the Momentum Longevity Shake, which is a revolutionary wellness brand born from personal hardship and deep purpose. He now lives on 20 acres in Wisconsin, working a few focused hours every day, and he's building a movement to help 100,000 people add better, longer years to their lives. Today, we are going to dive into what it truly means to get free, how to find and build your own masterpiece, and what it means to reinvent success on your own terms. So everybody, please help me welcome Mike.
Thank you so much. That's the nicest intro I've ever had. I'm going to just like record that, and every time I walk into a party, just like
play it. Yeah. I'm looking for, I got to pay for this side hustle. So if you need an announcer, I will happily fly wherever you live.
Presenting Mr. Tecku.
Yeah.
Why don't people do that?
Yeah, I have been told I have a nice voice for radio, but
that might have been. I used to have this radio show, like it was too ugly for TV. It was like a joke, you know. You have a nice face.
You have a face for radio. Yes, yeah.
But I'm sure they meant it as a compliment.
I'm sure they did. I've learned to just, even the positive comments, you let them pass by. The negative comments, you definitely let pass by. You don't want to get distracted by your ego. Yeah. But welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you are here. For any of my listeners who may not have heard of you or heard of Momentum Shake or your story yet, what do they need to know about you to understand the man that you are?
I am in pursuit of growth. That is my main motivation for everything. So I build businesses to build myself. And this is my 5th multi-million-dollar company. And every one of those stages has been an evolution, pretty much perfectly aligned with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you start off with, everything is difficult, right? At every single level. And then once you acquire a certain skill to be at this level of growth, then you imagine you're at like a weight room, right? And you start off with the light weights and you get strong enough to where they feel like nothing. And then you can go, get on the harder and harder things. And that is kind of what business is. You start off with as a service business, and then you start hiring people. And instead of being just self-employed, now you're managing people, and then you turn that into a product business, and then you make a company that makes products, and then you have a company that makes companies, and then you're just an investor. And then maybe at one point you're just throwing out ideas. So, but every one of those is a 10x level improvement that you have to make for yourself. I take on these challenges not for the end result, but for the person I get to become at the end of that journey. I'm just really looking for things that I think are impossible, so I can just kind of go after them a little bit. And then the reward is the person I get to become. So I think that is kind of me in a nutshell. And the reason I say that is because that is the motivating factor that is the filter that all my decisions go through. So it's money's awesome. Don't get me wrong. It's helped me make an incredible life, giving me a lot of freedom. It's giving me a lot of ability to turn imagination into real physical things. But at the end of the day, if that is the thing that you're chasing, you'll make a lot of short-term decisions that are not good for you or good for the people you're trying to serve. So I'm always looking for alignment, where I am in the process of being in a flow state that causes growth, that makes something incredible. And I think that's the way, that is the path. So I think that's what has led to so much success and so much positive reinforcement from the world. Everything is in alignment with that.
Oh, that sounds like you found a way to make peace with that growth journey too, because not every step along the way, I'm sure you didn't wake up, or you weren't born with $1 million. So it's not like you already knew how to use it and live in that life and make it, targeted purpose. You earned your way to get there, but you also learned along the way that like this isn't the be all or end all moment for me. And so I'd love to talk about a little bit of your origin story for your growth journey, kind of like what I mentioned in your intro. You actually didn't start out as a business owner. You started out as a musician and an artist, a creative. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about that process that you went from realizing, maybe this path isn't working for me and I need to pivot and move into something else. So what did that, moment teach you going from musician to entrepreneur?
Well, there's a bunch of stories that I had to undo. Elon Musk talks about this like a lot, that there's only the laws of physics. Everything else is kind of a suggestion, right? And I didn't realize that. I thought that there were a lot of rules that you had to do, and I was certainly told them a lot. The main myth I was given in college is that you have to pursue your vocation. That kind of means that like what you do to make money and survive is like the reason you were put here on earth. And then if you extrapolate that, that means that's the reason that life exists. It's the reason the universe was made, for the way that I make a paycheck. It justified the expensive college.
Yes.
Right. But so for me, I started pursuing music because that to me was like, okay, well, this is why I'm here. But that was the dream I had as a child, right? And if you think about what your childhood dreams were, like you can't see past your living room. You don't actually have a wide enough imagination to all the possible things that you could be. So like, when you're young, you're like, I want to be a policeman. I want to be a fireman. And then you just, who do you see on TV? And like my heroes were all rock stars. So I was like, okay, I'll go do that. And I'll go and be able to support myself. It'll be my identity. It'll be the way I have meaning and purpose and status. And, it's a lot to ask for, a young person to have all that in the beginning in one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just doing it for all the wrong reasons. I mean, I really loved music, but when I look back on it, it was really, I was trying to find validation. And I think that's what a lot of us are. Like, am I living right? Am I doing this? And that comes with the question that there is a right or wrong way to do this. So when I finally hit this place of questioning these things, I was a musician full time. I was on food stamps. I was couch surfing. I made like $4,000 or $5,000 one year. Lots of crazy side jobs. All to just like force this dream to happen, right? And then when I step back and I'm like, this is not making me happy. I am not in alignment with what the world wants. I am pushing a boulder up a hill. This is a punishment. And so I just decided to invert everything. I was like, well, what if the way I made money had nothing to do with meaning and purpose and identity and status and validation, all that stuff? What if I just tried to earn the right to survive, right? It was just to make enough money to be free. And then once I had those needs met, at the bottom of the hierarchy of needs, maybe then I would have a little more clarity on like, what is it I really want to do? What is the purpose for me being here? And the more and more time, as I slowly kind of scaled those needs, it became clearer and clearer to me that none of these things are correlated. Validation and identity and all these things, these are just self-imposed pursuits, and they're ego-driven, right? They're all about what I want in the world instead of how can I be useful. So that's sort of the origin story of the flip between I'm going to make music that people want to listen to. I'm going to make things that people need and want, and that's going to come back to me as a reward of freedom and growth.
I think you touched on a lot of points that we were chatting about before we were recording, that when you get sold this idea, this is how to live life. Like, this is the direction you're supposed to take in. You're supposed to contribute to society in some way. And a lot of that was work until you're 65 kind of a deal, day in and day out. When I was talking about my career, most of it was spent at the FBI, which is historically and famously known for having multi-decade long careers. So it was not uncommon in our offices to have someone retire 30, 40, 45. I met someone once that was 50 years in. And so for millennials and Gen Z, envisioning a life where you were dedicated to one business or one organization for your entirety of your career seemed mind-boggling and near impossible. Because as, you know, things moved on and changed in society and different challenges come up and whatever shift, because you're told, I want to work, but I want to be free too. Like, I want to travel. I want to try these other things, these other experiences, or I want to be of service in some other way because this doesn't seem to be making sense anymore. And that was one of those kind of obstacles. I guess I realized I wasn't a creative initially, right? So I didn't realize that I could be creative. I was a statistics and strategy kind of person. And so when the box that I was in no longer fit me, I think I was outgrowing it faster than they could expand the box, metaphorically speaking. That's when I kind of realized, all right, there's a difference between having a bad day and then having repeating obstacles come in your way, or the universe starting to speak to you like, this doesn't fit, this isn't right, and there's a reason that this is so uncomfortable and so frustrating and so not progressing the way that it should be based on the ladder system that I was in. So I'm glad that I could find someone that has a shared experience where you kind of go, all right, if I'm not creating the thing that they want or they desire or that they need in this moment, what can I create instead that will give the customer what they need, but also enable me to continue my own pursuit of freedom? So I think that's fascinating and good that you recognize that. How young were you when you were being a musician and, started your first business?
I did that till I was 27. And I really thought, that the rule was that you have to sacrifice. You got to put in your dues. It's supposed to be suffering. No pain, no gain, right?
Right, yeah.
And good for you for having the self-awareness too, that to question that. I don't think most people do. But it was at that moment, like, I really just kind of ran out of options too. The money I had no money left to pay rent. If this was like the rest of life, I was like, nah, this is not for me. So when I was talking about alignment before, like, I feel like we have an internal compass that's built into us, hardwired, and it just signals pain and pleasure, right? And I just wanted to find out if I could align pleasure with growth and prosperity. And I think that's, if we're talking about what faith is, it's a belief that you're on the right track when you feel alive, and you're not when you feel the opposite. So I just started really trusting, like, my curiosity, my attention, the things that light me up, and like, this is where I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to find a way that the process of doing something is the path, the purpose, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it was a complete juxtaposition from the frame of mind that I had. I really kind of consider it being rather than achieving. Like, I was trying to be a famous musician, and I didn't care how much suffering I had to get to that point. And now I try to really enjoy my life as much as possible, be fascinated by the work, and completely detached from the results. And so, like, right here, right now, I am enjoying this moment. The metaphor I always kind of use in my head is like, we're driving across the country in the dark, and I don't fully know how to drive from here to New York City, and I can't see more than 100 feet ahead of me, but I can see the path right now, and I know I'm on the road, and I just have the faith that there's going to be more path in front of that. And so I just turn on the music and enjoy the ride a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you trust that you'll find a way to get there, whether or not you go exactly the right way or not doesn't really bother you.
I mean, even getting there, I've kind of let go of, right? Like,
Yeah, so not arriving being a
well,
thing.
the audacity that I know where I'm supposed to go. I just don't. And I've given up. I've really just kind of jumped into the river. Instead of going uphill, I'm going in the river and just flowing with it and like trusting that it's going to take me to the right place. And so I just kind of follow that compass. I'm wandering through the forest, whatever you want to call it. I don't know where we're going. I just know that this feels like the right path forward. And as long as that is aligned with me growing, then I know it's right. If I'm stagnant, if I'm just hedonistic and I'm trying to like, escape, that's not the pleasure I'm talking about. I'm talking about the pleasure from being in a flow state where you're getting better. That's the path forward.
Oh, that's a really interesting way to look at it. I'd love to talk a little bit about your get free first philosophy. I know that that typically relates to financial freedom, but I'm curious about how you've used that philosophy as a foundation for finding purpose, or how did that enable you to have a foundation for your purpose?
Sure. I just kind of remember my high school counselor when I was having these existential problems just as a teenager. And she was like, well, what would you do if you had $1 million? We've all heard that question a bunch. But it is impossible to know what the view from the mountaintop is until you've been there. There's no way you or anyone could answer that question. What would you do if you didn't have to worry about anything? Because if you've never tasted a fruit, you try to describe it, it's a pointless exercise. So I knew that I needed to get to a place where my needs were met. And then I could do things purely for the joy of them and not for all those other things on the hierarchy of needs. And so that's why I wanted to get free first. And that meant like, I don't have to stress about paying my rent or the bills or, any of these things. And then I can honestly like, well, would I do music now? And I got to honestly answer that after,
Right.
selling a couple companies. I was like, I don't think I like the process of that very much. So that's not how I want to spend my life. I could. But yeah, I think it's a requisite. The hierarchy of needs is the roadmap. You have to start off with meeting your basic needs, and then you can level up once that feels easy. The very last ones are self-actualization and self-transcendence. And I feel like a lot of our society, maybe the first time in history, our generation is like, trying to get us to start at self-actualization or self-transcendence, trying to like change the world as a young person. You can't even pay your rent, right? So we just don't know what we would truly want to do until those other things have happened first. It's very focusing too when you have a goal of get free first. So what I mean by that is all the things that you could do in the whole world get really narrowed when you're trying to increase your freedom of time and your freedom of place. So I really focused on doing things that were super efficient, having a really high hourly wage, and allowed me all that flexibility because I wanted as much time and energy to be spent on not making money to survive, but to like learn and grow and read books and experience things and travel the world and just become a better man. And that requires a lot of exploration, right? And optionality. So it narrowed my focus to things. I had very little value to provide the world at the time. So I was just, and I had a lot of time. So I started doing things like DJing weddings and catering and all kinds of like, I was a fit model, like trying on clothes. I was doing all kinds of crazy things to pay the bills. And when I was DJing weddings, I noticed that the guy I was working for had a photo booth. And this was in 2009. And this was pretty novel at the time. And he was like the first entrepreneur I got exposed to. And I was like, oh, wait, you can just make your own thing? That's amazing. And I started seeing all these people just fall in love with the photo booth at the weddings I was at. And I realized that there was very high demand and that the product could be really improved a lot. So instead of having a van to move these around, taking an hour, taking very poor photos, I wanted it to fit in a Nissan Sentra. I wanted it to take like 3 minutes to set up, and I wanted it to take beautiful photos. And so my friend and I went about building that, not knowing anything about cameras or computers or the photo booth industry at all. We decided to go figure it out and start from like first principles, just learning everything. And I think that is like the first skill set of an entrepreneur. If you're going to go like wayfind and make your thing, is you have to think that you can go learn something from scratch and be as good or better than the other people who've been doing it for a very long time. And that's like a certain naiveness. Like if you knew how difficult it would be, you wouldn't do it, but you just go in and you do it. And then
And see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And what you just, you figure out one thing at a time and you move up. I have this mental model that I use called learn, create, systemize. And that is the fractal pattern that I basically move through life in. I pay attention to my attention. So where am I naturally curious about something? And I just and I don't have to force myself to work on things. I just I'm Googling it or using AI now. And I'm just curious about it. And then once I've learned a ton about the thing, then I try to make it. So I got really deep into learning about photography and the computers and the printers and the just the whole process of how to make an experience and manufacturing. I just was naturally curious. And then so we created the thing and we prototyped it. And of course, nothing worked and we figured it out. And then I systemized it, that last part. And so that means that it wasn't requiring me to run it. It wasn't requiring a lot of technical skill. It was intuitive. It was simple. And that's the systemizing thing. You take complex things and you make them simple. And so if you do that, learn, create, systemize it every single step, because there's infinite things to learn, right? From not just building the products, but to, understanding the business model and then advertising and then how to be a leader and a communicator. No, we're all born knowing nothing, right? And then we just get the ability to go learn things. But to take that knowledge and then turn it into a thing that's useful, and then to take that knowledge and to turn it into wisdom, so it's a system, so it's automatic knowledge, that process is just one step in front of the other. It's driving through the dark, but you've made progress, and now you own that skill, right? It's like in a video game, you're wandering around and you find a scroll or you find a sword or something, and then you get to keep it. And no one can ever take that thing that you've improved about yourself away from you. So when I talk about I build businesses to build myself, it's just I'm adding little tools to my kit that I'll have forever. And that's what makes me wealthy, is you can take everything away from me, but I've got all of this experience and knowledge and wisdom about how to solve problems that I can just start over again.
Yeah, I love that. I'm really glad that you brought up that you were curious from the get-go for all the different projects or any business that you've started, and that you were willing to learn each role for how to make that business work or how to make that product come to life or actually operate. And as you said, being a mechanic in some ways, putting it all together, understanding how each piece of your system fuses and works. And then you can identify where a problem might be or when something occurs, because you're that means this part's broken. I got to go back to this piece of the system and adjust that, and then it'll come out correctly or whatever. Do you think that your willingness to humble yourself, I guess, to learn all of those different pieces before backfilling and hiring other people to come in, do you think that made you a better boss or a better leader at all as well, or impacted how you run the business because you already did each role?
I mean, maybe now. In the beginning, you're just winging it, right? So it is nonstop trial and error. And so that the path behind me is just a ton of failure and then learning and adjusting and moving forward. And so I don't even think of it as failure. I think of it as testing, right? And you just have when you know that you're going to have to try 10 things, 20 things, and then one of those will succeed, and then you're going to try to make that better. If you know that's the path forward, it's a dance instead of a struggle. I always think of water. It doesn't have a plan. It's just moving with the force of gravity, and it's going to find the path of least resistance. And it's going to branch out into 100 different things, but eventually it'll find the channel. So I'm always feeling for that force behind me. Instead of me trying to will something, I'm looking for that feedback where this feels obvious and easy. And I know that is so counterintuitive to what we hear, that you got to grind, but those people burn out in whatever it is.
Right.
And so I'm really trying to protect I enjoy my life. I want to do this. I like it. I like the process of exploration and learning. So there's some self-awareness into what I really like to do. And it took me 3 or 4 businesses to figure that out, because until the 3rd business got sold and I had enough money and there was no need for anything else. I paid off my houses. I just traveled the world. It got to the point where I was I'm just going to retire and I'm going to golf. And it just hit me that's not very exciting. And I cannot turn my mind off. I just love creating things. And I feel happiest when I'm learning, creating, and systemizing whatever my new curiosity is. I just want to do that thing, that process. That's how I want to be. And so that's my self-awareness. And if that's not you, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur, right? You need to have that like insatiable curiosity and need to create, plus an overconfidence that you can literally walk into any kind of thing and like, I got it. I'll figure this out.
Yeah.
No problem. And if that's not you, then you want to probably align yourself with somebody that is that way, and you lean into your own skill sets, because there's a tremendous amount of things that I'm absolutely terrible at, and I need so much help. And so when your question about leadership is really me becoming aware of the things that light me up, that I'm exceptional at, and not doing any of the things that I hate and that I'm also probably not good at, right? Those things are always aligned.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
bad at the things I don't like to do. And so I've gotten better at finding the right person. You know, like my bookkeeper, she loves the numbers. She likes to make everything line up and be orderly and like organized. And oh my God, even just talking about it right now, like, yeah.
You're like, I love her, but I don't want to talk about it. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm so aware of when people are doing the thing that they're aligned with. And I put people in the right place and I let them do their thing. That for me is like great leadership, is like, you love this, you're good at it, I'm going to get out of your way and you're going to take ownership of this and I'm going to check in with you. So that's my leadership style. That one that seems to work for me is finding the right person for the right position. And I think that's probably the way all things work out, is that 99% of success is the first decision on the thing. You know, if I walk out my door right now and I go left or right, every other decision after that is 1/10 as important. Because either I went the complete wrong direction, or maybe I'm sort of in the right direction and then I can adjust and tack. But so like if you put the wrong person in the wrong place, no amount of leadership is going to matter. If you marry the wrong person, no amount of mediation is going to matter. You have to get that first decision right. If you pick the wrong career, the wrong business to start, either you're going uphill or you're going with the flow of the river. And so that you want to spend an incredible amount of time on that first decision and get it right. And then everything else after that is going to feel easy and obvious.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, that being intentional with the decision that you're trying to make there. And when you talk about placing people in positions where they can feel supported and aligned with whatever it is that matters to them, and you're not standing in the way of what is possibly their purpose as well, you know, out of ego or out of necessity, you're recognizing, okay, this is one of the best ways I can support my employee or my business partners or anybody else that I work with, is by letting them do what they're good at and watching them, you know, pursue that and grow that. And inevitably you get the benefit of them helping your business, you know, and it grows and it enables you to continue to do the things that you want to do as well, because you're not spending so much time on the things that you hate. But that's one dream for me right now, is to eventually get to a point where I can systemize and I can extend services to somebody else, because I know that I hate the editing process for this.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's not my strong suit, right? Again, I studied counterterrorism for 10 years. Like I did not do videography, photography, audio engineering. So God bless anybody that still listens to this show at this point. But I swear there will be a day where I can enable somebody else to help me, and it'll just help elevate the show even better. I know that because there's somebody out there that knows more than me, and I can't wait to work with them and put them in place. So I'm glad to hear that you also implement, you know, a version of that. I'd love to talk a little bit more about momentum and how you knew that switching to the supplement industry was the right thing to do for you at the time. You did mention, you know, you've had multiple businesses, you are financially free, or you're living in a place where you have the ability to feel empowered to do whatever it is you'd like to do, whether it's golf or travel or whatnot. And if you did get to retire early, some people might think, why in the world would I go back to work? Right. So I'm curious if you could give us a little bit more insight into that kind of timeline, and how did you know, I don't really like retirement. I want to shift and I want to create something new, or I want to move into this business. Why? What sparked that? And what made you want to do the shake, or create the shake, I guess, not do the shake. That sounds like a dance move.
Well, before I knew about creating the shake, I had the real understanding that I need to be moving forward. I need to be doing something. Otherwise, I'm just going to die. So that realization was super important, that the point isn't to win the game and quit. The point is to find a way to play the game and just keep enjoying it, right? There is no like escaping the game and like surviving. So I spent a couple of months being super depressed because I just didn't, and I think this is what happens to like, when we see celebrities and people just like blow up their lives. They've reached the end of all the achievable things, right? They can't get more famous, they can't get wealthier, and they're still not happy. And that is, you either reorientate yourself to be back to process instead of goal orientated, or you blow your life up and just try to start all over, because there's nothing more depressing to think that there's nothing left to do. And I was 35 at the time, and so I was like, there's nowhere left to travel. There's no reason to build anything. I don't have a reason to get out of bed, and so I decided to go back to building something. But the rules were, I was not going to do anything I didn't like doing the process of, and if I was going to pursue something, I was going to make it my masterpiece. It was going to be something I was insanely proud of, and just sort of like my gift to the world. It didn't need to be anything else. It was going to be just the best thing I could possibly create. And so I wanted to have that level of attention and dedication to it. So on the back of every bag, there's a picture of my face and my signature, because I wanted it to be like my painting, like here's my art. And so the reason I eventually ended up on the Momentum Shake was I started thinking about goals that I thought were impossible. And at the time, the most audacious thing I could come up with, this was 2018, 2019, was, well, what if I got a year younger? That sounds like you can't do that. Nobody was really talking about longevity or reverse aging at the time. We have not conquered that yet by any means, but I think it's a really fascinating North Star. So I tried to make this really audacious goal and then kind of work backward on it. And it wasn't even that I had a business in mind. I just started noticing that's where my attention was going towards. So I started doing research on all kinds of things, and then it kind of led me towards, there's a lot of stuff we can do to supplement, right? There's a whole bunch of foundational things like better sleep and exercise, and those are all must-dos. But if we want to do something extraordinary, right, it's going to take a little bit more than what the average person is doing. And that's probably the truth for everything in the world, right? If you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're going to get really similar results. So I needed to do something that was supplemental to that foundational thing. And so I studied 200 or 300 different supplements out there and realized that there was just a ton of noise and a lot of bullshit and perverse incentives to sell magic pixie dust. And so I started narrowing everything down to what is our body actually made out of and what is actually declining as we get older. And so that's going to be the foundation of what goes into my personal supplement stack. And so another year went by doing the research on that, and I'm taking, a bunch of pills and powders, and I was fine with it. It still had not occurred to me that this could be a business. This was just like a separate, area of curiosity. And then COVID hit, things got pretty stressful in the household. My girlfriend, Stephanie, runs a dance studio. And if you can imagine trying to run that during COVID.
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah, she got super stressed out to the point where she woke up one morning and she had just become completely blind in her left eye. And we obviously freaked out.
Sure.
And had to go to a bunch of doctors, and we could not get clear answers. And then finally, a doctor let us know that this is probably multiple sclerosis, which is an autoimmune attack. This is happening more and more in society. And I think it's a whole host of things, but stress was like the last thing to overfill the bucket, right? And so they said she had maybe like 2 years before she was in a wheelchair, didn't figure out a way to stop this attack, and she would lose vision in her other eye. And so we're like, oh my God.
Okay, we are pivoting
hard.
hard.
It was very motivating. It's very focusing.
Well, sure, so yeah. Makes you rethink your entire life.
Right. Well, it puts everything into perspective really clearly, that it doesn't matter how much time and money and things you have. If you do not have your health, you have absolutely nothing. So I realized, well, it was very motivating from this point of view, but the idea for the shake came in is that we're just doing, talking to dozens of doctors, we're reading all kinds of forums, and everyone's got, documentaries, everyone's got an opinion on what you have to do and foods to cut out and supplements to take. And almost all of it's just total nonsense. And really what she was suffering from, a lot of people are suffering from, is just something in your body isn't functioning correctly. And these are just the symptoms of it. And really, if you trace that all the way back, it's just aging. At the end of the day, these things, heart attacks and cancer and a lot of autoimmune issues, like they don't happen to young people very often unless something is extraordinarily wrong, right? So they accumulate as you get older because damage in your body is accumulating. And so that became pretty clear to me. but it also, watching her struggle, she's taking all these pills and powders that, I'm suggesting, other people are suggesting. And then it got to the point where she just couldn't swallow them anymore. And so I started like mixing it up and putting it into ice cream. And then it turned into a drink. And then she was able to like take all of these things. And I was like, oh, I could really provide some serious value here by taking this really complex thing and curating it. So taking knowledge and turning it into automatic wisdom. So you don't have to figure all this stuff out. It's just done for you. And then I can make it easy instead of this horrific process of you buying everything and then trying to, spend 20 minutes every day choking something down into something that's like a desirable, pleasurable thing. I feel like that would be a beautiful thing to try to create and do it the opposite of the way everyone else is doing it, which is trying to have as big of a margin as possible. I think we were spending $500 or $600 a month. It's like, how can I, cut that by 75% and make it better and make it trustworthy? So those were the three things that I realized that could be a product, and they were worthy goals, and it was something I could make that would be exceptional. Like, what would be the 3-star Michelin restaurant version of a supplement? So that was the mission, and I spent the next 2 years going around the world trying to find the absolute craftsman of each ingredient. So like we were in Ireland, and that's where we get the whey protein from, because that's the one place in the world where there's year-round grass, and you can have a certification that these animals are out in pasture all day, every day. And really nowhere else in the world you can do that. And they don't make a ton of it, this really premium, expensive stuff. So like we had to make direct relationships with them. And that's what we kind of did for like every single ingredient, put it together, and then spent the next 2 years after that trying to perfect how do you make this? Because most supplement companies are a marketer, and then they go find an ingredient that's popular, and then they go find a manufacturer who will put their label on a bottle. They never see the inside of the factory. They don't know how it's made. They don't know where it comes from. They're just really good at marketing. So I wanted to take the level of craftsmanship that all these ingredients were having and then learn how to do that myself, so I could cut out all those middlemen and keep the price somewhat attainable. It's an investment. There's no doubt about it still, because we're taking a bunch of very expensive things and putting them together. But we've been able to remove so many costs while improving the quality of everything that it's still it's $5 a day. So that's within reason, I think, for most people. And that's compared to like what it would be if you bought everything separately, would be like $18 or $19 a day. So I feel really proud about what we've made. I've made lots of different products, but I've never had the response, the force behind me where people are like, I love this. I don't want to go a day without this. It's changed my life. And so that's really motivating for me to keep making this better every single day.
Yeah. Well,
it was a long answer. Sorry.
No, I love the answer. And I'm so glad that you shared so much. Because my next question was going to be, this is, as you've learned, this is a very saturated industry made up of a lot of businesses that have different motivations behind why they created either their product or why they market it in a certain way. For people that are looking for, I don't want to take 6, 7, 8 different items every single day, because you're right, it is expensive. It's maybe not sustainable for certain people's finances. What is so special about taking momentum just the once, or however many servings per day you may recommend? Why is that important or crucial for your product? And for anybody that is looking to downsize the amount of supplements they're taking, why should they pick momentum out of everybody else that's available out there that claims to be, I replace 75 vitamins, I replace 21 minerals, I replace whatever? Why should they pick momentum out of all the choices that are there?
We actually have almost no competition. When you move up the quality level, it's a really lonely place, right? Nobody wants to put in that extra effort and cost to try to achieve something great. So the competition is super stiff in the middle, right? And low end, where like things are less expensive, but we're pretty much alone. We have no direct competition. So the difference between us and any other drink that you might have is that there are full doses of every single thing in there. Almost every other ingredient is like, we got 70 billion different ingredients. They're trace amounts. It's supplement stuffing, I call it, pixie dust. So they may have 70 ingredients, but like 10 milligrams of each ingredient. And so if you don't know what 10 milligrams, it's like 2 grains of salt. right? Not going to do anything, but you're allowed to like write it. And then the ingredients that they're putting in are meaningless. It'll be like 10 milligrams of a carrot or 15 milligrams of kale. If you can imagine
How
which
small that
is
really
a
is.
little tiny piece of kale would do for your body is nothing. Your body is not kale deficient. Your body is protein deficient. Your body is made out of collagen and hyaluronic acid and NAD. These are like the fundamental building blocks of your body. They're insanely expensive. And those are the things that we put in the shake, is what your body is made out of and what you're deficient in. Most likely you need to run on. You need magnesium to run on, right? And so we put those in at full doses at the most expensive form. There's like 30 different kinds of magnesium you could have, right? One is more bioavailable, one is a higher quality than another, and we just go for the most expensive, best one that we can possibly find on the planet. That is what we do at every single level of that. Just for like, so people can kind of understand how we do anything is how we do everything.
Yes.
We import vanilla beans from Madagascar and we extract the vanilla ourselves. And we probably spend more just on vanilla than most people spend on their entire product, right? The average margin on a supplement is 90 to 95%. Ours is 30%. So it's these are not comparable things. The vanilla is a good example just because most people will put in an artificial flavor, a thing that is adjacent, that is similar tasting to vanilla, but is actually not good for you and doesn't taste good. Or they'll try to skirt around it and they'll put natural flavors. There's no such thing as a natural flavor. It's just a clever way of saying not the real thing.
Right.
Because they're 1/1000th the cost, right? That is the entire food system right now, is they try to make things that look and feel and taste similar to the expensive real thing, but they aren't, and they have negative effects. So when even you see people with some kind of, like, it's no sugar, like, well, there's a sweetener and it's a fake sugar, and that's actually way worse for you.
Right. Your body doesn't know how to process that.
Exactly. Correct. Yeah. So it happens at every single level. There's a vitamin B called folic acid that's a synthetic that is in like a lot of enriched flours and a lot of multivitamins. And it's like 60% of the population has a gene called MTHFR that you literally can't process that. And that's what I have. There's a version that's called methylfolate. We can get into the science of that if you like, but it's the natural version of that. Your body can process it. And of course, it's 100 times more expensive. That's why you never see it. If your goal is to make something outstanding, then you don't care about the cost, whatever it takes to make it outstanding. And so that has been my North Star. I'm like, this is going to be a masterpiece. I don't care. Like, everything is going to bend towards that. And some amount of audience will be interested in that. And that's been really effective for me, is just to make the best product out there, and you have to do way less marketing, way less work.
Right. Well, I like that, you're talking about, if I'm going to put in any effort at all to pursue this new goal or this new business, I'm going to put in all the effort. Or I don't know if you watch Parks and Rec, but there's a character on there that's named Ron Swanson, and he says, never half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. And it's kind of like, if you're really going to put in your name on it and your photo and your branding and your investment, why not make it the best possible thing? And especially if you're originally designing it for someone that you love and you care about, like, why would you want to feed her or give her something that's less than the best? So it makes sense to me why, if I'm going to make something for her, why not make it to where it's actually useful for anyone? Is your product available? You don't need to have MS to drink it. Like, anybody should.
Oh my God, no, it's made for anybody who's getting older.
Yeah, no, just aging in general. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I figured as much, but I just wanted to clarify. I have one of my aunts, she actually does have MS, and found that out, I want to say maybe 15 years ago or so now. And I'm really curious. I want to send some product to her, because I'd be interested to see if she would enjoy it as well, and see if it helps her at all or can affect her lifestyle and help her feel like she gets more out of it.
Most people seem to really like it a lot. That's the goal, is I want to make something that you desire. The whole concept of momentum is that change is really difficult. Trying to become the best version of yourself is usually hard, right? So if I can make this foundational piece easy for you, then you've acquired a habit that you like to do. You don't have to oh yeah, I got to do this. Like, oh my God, I can't wait to have my shake. That's how I feel. That's how a lot of people feel every morning. And sorry, I have to go soon. But so if we can get that first piece correct, then everything else after that starts to become easier. You have more energy to do your exercise and you recover faster, so you get better results. You can start to sleep better. You can start to feel less stressed. And all these things are, the foundational part. You start to lose weight because you're having all the nutrients you have and need with lower calories, and you feel less hungry. So I want to make this first step a big win for you, and then everything else you have the momentum to achieve.
At the risk of not spending too much more of your time, because I know and you're a busy man, you got a lot going on. We'll just wrap up with a couple of fast questions real quick. These are things that I ask, pretty much all of my guests. What do you want out of life, and have you found what you're looking for?
Yes, for now. I'm not trying to get anywhere. I'm trying to just walk a path that I really enjoy. And I stray off of that all the time. I end up doing things I don't like to do. And now I have the awareness, be like, I don't have to do this, so we all have free will and choice to change our minds and go back on a path that feels like being alive. And so I think I can do that for, who knows how long we have the potential to be for another 100, 150 years. I really believe that. So I want to enjoy that process as much as possible. And yeah, it's just a really great feeling to wake up every day. Like, I get to do whatever I want, and let's go do that. No matter where you are on the hierarchy of needs, you have that choice.
It must feel incredibly freeing to have that and continue to pursue that as well. If you met your younger self, the musician or a prior entrepreneurial version of you, if you could meet your younger self, what would you say to him now?
I would tell him you have what it takes and that there's no rush. You're going to get there. Just let go and trust. And there was so many times where I stressed out and freaked out. And if I could just be like, hey, look, you get here and it doesn't matter, because it's always going to be this journey forward. So just be a little more present and find happiness right where you're at right then. And just trust that it's going to keep moving forward and getting better as long as you stay following that compass. I think that would have saved a lot of worry. Like, if you know when you're going to die, you just have so much more adventure and carefreeness. So yeah.
Living more carefree. I love that. And then finally, for any audience member or listener who's tuning in right now and they're facing their own what now moment and they're feeling lost and insecure or unstructured and overwhelmed, what advice would you say to that person who's lost and trying to find purpose and looking for their first step?
Start paying attention to your attention. What feels effortless? What feels like you're being drawn towards something? That's the alignment. That's the path. That's the way. You don't have to know where you're going. You just have to know what feels like you're alive. It's literally that simple. We try to make things very complex, but this was all figured out long, long ago, and it's beautifully simple. We're just here to survive and grow. If you trace back all life, that has been the hardwiring mission, is to survive and advance. So as long as you're in alignment with that, you are living out the purpose of why we're here. And when you're living out that, everything else feels right. So you just know that this is a journey. You're at the bottom, or maybe you're lost, but one step in the right direction and you're no longer lost.
Yeah, I've heard it several times. Some guests have said that you're always one decision away from a completely different life. It's just whether or not you've got the courage to take that step and let it flow, right? Like you've said. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Please let everybody know, how can they find you? How can they engage with Momentum? What's the best way to either contact you or,
Sure.
access you?
MomentumShake.com. Try it out, or you can email me if you have any questions about life or business or whatever at mike@MomentumShake.com.
Wonderful. Okay, everyone, I will make sure to put Mike's information into the show notes, and you know how to find me. We are on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. You can always reach out at hello@podcastforthelost.com, and we'll tune in and see you next week. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.
Oh, love it.